Hello my crochet friends, are we ready to do the last video of the spider stitch crochet along that we started back in October of 2023? Look how big my blanket is that I can't even fit it all in frame. I'm hanging up on my bookshelves, right? It goes all the way down there. It's sitting on my IKEA step stool. So big I can't even fit all of it in frame. So let's sit down and do some details about this blanket. Okay, so you guys know, like when I do these last videos of a project, right? I like to hang the blanket up on my bookshelf so you guys can get an overall view of it. But I didn't realize it was so long that I'm actually going to have to take it off real quick because my little hooks, they pull at it, you know, because of the heaviness of the blanket. So I am going to take it down. So you're just going to see my bookshelves in the background, okay? All right, so we have a lot of details to go over. We started this crochet along back in October, and I had such a blast with it. This blanket, the colors that I chose, it just makes me so happy to look at them. It was a pleasure to work on it with you guys and seeing everybody's progress on them. Now I know not everybody's done, and I know not everybody has made a spider stitch blanket, but that's okay. You can still watch as we go along and do a thing. When it hit December, I did finish my blanket December 3rd, I think my notes say. I just couldn't do a video on it because if I had done this video back in December, then our crochet along would have been done. And I didn't want it to be done because I was having so much fun. I didn't have any coping mechanisms to help me deal with the kind of like a letdown when something is over, something that is enjoyable and you're having a lot of fun with and you're passionate about, and then it comes to an end. I didn't have any coping mechanisms. So therefore, if I didn't do that last video, then the crochet along didn't end. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry for those of you who are waiting for this video. You know, that's how it is with mental illness. It occasionally kicks you in the butt. So here we are in February, a couple days after Valentine's Day. We're going to do the final details. So the spider stitch, okay, it is a single crochet, chain one, single crochet in the same space, whether you do it in your starting chain or if you do a row of single crochets and then you do it in a certain stitch, right? Which is what I do. I love to do a chain and in my first row be single crochets because it gives me a stronger foundation to work into when I'm working a pattern. So for me, this spider stitch started on row 2 and it was a single crochet, chain one, single crochet in the same stitch all the way to, well, I did start it out with a single crochet all by itself. Then I skipped, then I did the spider all the way to the end where I skipped, and then I did a single crochet to end the row. And for me, it makes the sides nice and even and straight, okay? And so when you go back on the third row, you do a spider stitch in every chain one space of your spider stitches of the row before. I find it to be very relaxing and therapeutic when I'm working on a spider stitch. I'm finding that it's one of my favorite stitch combinations. Single crochets are easy, chain ones are easy, and when you put them together and all you're ever doing is working in the chain one space in the next row, it's just, you don't have to count. And yeah, sometimes you have to pay attention to what you're doing. There were times when I would do a single crochet, a chain one, and I would skip that next single crochet and go on to the next one, and I'd have to rip it out and go back and fix it. But I found it to be nice and easy and relaxing, seriously, and I loved working on it, and I didn't want it to stop. Okay, so like we've done in the past, I'm going to sit this blanket on my IKEA step stool. I'm going to get behind the camera so you guys can get a close-up, and then we'll talk about all the details, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, wow, I haven't done this in months. Look at that. Isn't she beautiful? Just a little closer. How's that? Down just a little bit more. Oh, yeah, there we go. Look how beautiful she is. Yeah, so I'm going to skip this part because this is the border. We're going to start right here. I used a number 4 medium weight yarn. So medium weight is also called worsted weight, Aran weight. It depends on where you are in the world. I think it is a 10 to 12 ply if you're in Australia. Okay. I used an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter, and I used the eye because I wanted this blanket to have some movement and some squishiness and some drape to it, and you don't get that if you use a smaller hook, because a smaller hook makes for tighter stitches, and I didn't want it tight, I didn't want it dense or stiff. So I used an eye, which gave me a lot of movement in this blanket. I mean, it is very scrunchable and squishable, and I like that. And I started with, what I did was I alternated colors. I went from a dark color to a light color to a dark color. And that was my pattern throughout the blanket, okay? I used a mix of yarns. I do have notes here, hold on. My yarn list, okay? I used a mix of JoAnn's Big Twist Value, Red Heart Super Saver, Lion Brand Vanna's Choice, and Loops and Threads Impeccable. And their colors were Ivory for the creamy white, magenta, purple, lilac, slime, bright orange, aqua, and watermelon. With the Red Heart Super Saver, I used pumpkin and spring green. The Lion Brand, I used Duckie and Pink Poodle. And for the Loops and Threads, I used Arbor Rose and Aqua, and the Arbor Rose is the pink color that I first started out with. Now, the cost of all my yarns, except for the pumpkin right here, which was $7.19, only because it was like a jumbo size ball of yarn and I didn't use all of it, I spent $50 roughly on yarn. Now, I didn't use all the yarn in all these colors, so my cost of making this would be a little lower, but I did overall on the average spend $50 on the yarn. Okay, this over here lets me know how much I used of each skein and each ball of yarn. Like the Pink Poodle was 4.5 ounces. Well, I used 4.5 ounces. The Magenta was it came in a 6-ounce ball and I used 4.5. So it seems as though 4.5 ounces was roughly my average for the yarn that I used. All right, so this first color is the darker pink, and it is my chain, which is a chain of 151 plus 2. 151 plus 2. Yeah, so I chained 151. I added 2 for the turning chain. I worked in stitch number 151 and did single crochets all the way across. And then the second row started the spider stitch, and row 3 all the way to the last row of spider stitch, and then my last row was single crochets. Okay, I got, how many rows of this pink did I get? I do have notes on how many rows I got out of each color. That's this one. So the chain, row 1, which was all single crochets, and then 16 rows of the spider stitch for this dark pink, which was about 4.5 ounces of yarn. But look at that, isn't that gorgeous? And then this light shade of pink, I did 17 rows. See if I can keep my notes where I can see them real quick. Okay, after the light pink came light blue, and I did 17 rows of light blue. And this darker blue, which is actually more of a teal color, I did 18 rows. The dark orange, which is next, I did 17 rows. This light shade of orange, which has a bit of a peach color to it, is 18 rows. This light green, which is a slimy green, is 18 rows. The dark green, which I know is spring green from Red Heart Super Saver because they've had this color for a long time, 17 rows. This dark purple, 17 rows. The light purple, 17 rows. This should be the Pink Poodle from Lion Brand. I had added this on at the last minute when I got done with the purple. The purple originally was supposed to be my last color, and I realized I wanted a little more length or height to it, so I went back to my stash to see if I had some pinks. Since I started with pink, I thought maybe I could end with some pink, and so I added more to it. So there's 17 rows of the Pink Poodle, and then 17 rows of the spider with this last shade of pink, and then 1 row of single crochets. So 17 rows of spider, 1 row of single crochets, and then we went on to the border. But this blanket, oh, look at that. Let's do these colors again. I know in these videos I add in a lot of information about what I did, but I mean, that's what it is with crocheting. As simple as it can be, it can also, it's a lot. You do a lot of things and you count a lot of things. I counted, I used what, 14 rows of color? I mean, not 14 rows, just 14 skeins of color. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13, and then 14. See, now the thing is, I wanted some yellow in my blanket, but the yellow just, whenever I tried to put it in with these other colors, it just didn't go. For some reason, the yellow can be a very bright color and it can steal the show in any blanket. So you got to be careful with the color of yellow. But this is Duckie yellow. It's from Lion Brand Vanna's Choice. It's my favorite shade of yellow and I really wanted it in there. And then I thought, you know what? Let's do the border. I knew I always wanted to do the border in this cream color or off-white. And then I decided to use the Duckie yellow to finish off the border. And I only got 2 rounds. But in all fairness, 1 round on a blanket is like 4 rows, and then the second round is another 4 rows. So I used all of my last little bit of Duckie yellow because they don't make this color anymore, and it's a shame. So what did I do on the border? Let's see. Single crochets all the way around. Half double crochets, double crochets. What in the world did I do on this border? I have no idea. Guys, I'm sitting here looking at it. I have no idea what I did to this border. Do I have notes for it? I have no idea. Oh my God, the one thing I didn't bother looking up. Some kind of crocheter I am. I didn't even write down any notes on what I did to the border. Yeah, all right, I have no idea. Let's see. They look like double crochets or half doubles, and I did it in between stitches. That I can tell you. I did it in between. Yeah. It looks like half double crochets in between stitches. So for me, it gives it a little bit of a lacy feel and some open work, you know? And then this last row is single crochet. Okay, so I started out with single crochets, my foundation row, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds of the creamy white in the half double crochet in between stitches, 1 round of half double crochet in between stitches with the Duckie yellow, and then 1 round of single crochets. And that finishes off my blanket. So I did measure it. How wide is my blanket? My blanket is roughly 50 inches wide this way and roughly 75 inches tall. And I tell you that because I actually haven't been able to lay it on the floor because, take a look at my bookshelves. I'm in the process of emptying my bookshelves to shift them down a little bit and rearrange them. So I have a lot of books on the floor behind me and I'm not going to show them to you. Lots of books on the floor, so I can't lay this out just yet to get an exact measurement. So roughly 50 by 75. I'm thinking that would fit on a twin size bed, wouldn't it? Okay, so I also know how much time I spent on this blanket because I always time myself when I do a row. in the beginning of the blanket. I time myself when I do a row in the middle of the blanket, and I time myself at the end. And then I take those 3 and I average them out to tell you exactly how long, not exactly because it's an average, but how long it takes to make a blanket. So my time per row, 8 minutes, 7 seconds. And there's 209 rows in my blanket, which comes out to 1800 minutes. Oh, in 3 seconds. I actually wrote the seconds down. And then you divide it by 60 minutes in 1 hour. So it took me 30 hours and 3 minutes to work on my spider stitch rows. All right. How much time I spent sewing in yarn tails. All right. It was 3 minutes and 5 seconds per yarn tail. And there was 11 yarn tails. So 38 minutes. 1 round of the border took me 33 minutes. So I wound up with 8 rounds. Is that what I did? 1, yes. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 rounds. And it came out to 264 minutes, which is 4 hours. So total, 34 hours took me to make this blanket. So $50 in 34 hours. Okay, can I be honest with you guys? I'm not feeling this video today. Sometimes when I'm done with a project, I'm done with a project and I don't want to go back to it, which is why I have a project pile that is as big as it is, where it had like 70 blankets in there and I've only made it halfway through my project pile, right? Sometimes I lose my enthusiasm for it, and that's, for me, that's my life as a crafter. That's how it can be for me. So I feel like maybe I'm not doing a really good job today, but I am giving you all the details for this blanket. I did have leftover yarns, and when I was done with this in December, I so totally wanted to dig into all the leftovers and make a second blanket. Maybe not necessarily a spider stitch blanket, but I wanted to use all the leftovers to make another blanket that's as pretty as that one, because the colors go so well together. Okay, so I do have a bag here, reusable shopping bag, that has all my leftovers in it. And what I had been doing is, with the yarn labels, I had been taking a couple inches of the yarn, little snippets, and connecting them to the yarn labels. And it's because I did like this combination of yarn so much. And you know, with the yarn companies, they'll make fantastic colors for, you know, a year or 2 or 3, and then they discontinue them. And I hate it when they do that. Especially the Lion brand, Vanna's Choice, with that Duckie yellow. It is my favorite shade of yellow. Now, the only way I can find it anymore is to hit the internet and look at eBay and look at Etsy, where people are, you know, they'll raise the price of it to 2 or 3 times what it had originally cost, because it's so hard to get a hold of. So it's my favorite shade of yellow. So with the little sample that I have for the Duckie yellow, what I'll do is I'll take this sample to the store with me and see if any of the yarn companies will have one that's similar, whether it's Red Heart or Bernat or other versions of Lion brand. You know, I'll take this little sample to the store. I will order stuff from the internet and see if I can find something that is just similar to that shade of yellow. So I know this looks like a mess, and what I would like to do is get a binder and, you know, little sleeves and stick them in there to keep them nice and safe and not get all knotted up, you know. But I thought this blanket was a really good color combination. It is so bright, it is so cheery, and using the bigger hook, the eye or the 5.5 millimeter, it gives it a lot of movement and a lot of drape. And of course, the spider stitch itself, with that texture that happens, that little ridge that kind of goes up through the blanket. I am so in love with that, and I guess that's why I keep making spider stitch blankets. This is like the 6th or 7th one I've made. I have to get a count, like once I'm done with going through my project pile, I have to get a count on how many spider stitch blankets I've made since that first original one that is just alternating between white and pink, the lighter shade of pink and then the dark shade of pink, which is where I got the idea of doing light and dark throughout the blanket. So these are the labels with the little yarn tails. I mean, look at that, it's so pretty. Okay, so what do I have? I have a random ball of Big Twist Value in here. This is the yellow I wanted to put in the blanket, but it was too much of a golden mustard color. Yeah, they actually call it gold. So I did not use this in my blanket, but it does go really well with those other colors. That's why it's in the bag, because it was a possibility. And then for the creamy white or off-white, soft white, I use this as Big Twist Value from JoAnn's, and they called it Ivory. And I used 2 skeins, 1 skein and part of this one, and there's 6 ounces, I want to say. I don't have the label on it anymore, but I love this creamy color. And this is this is the last shade of pink that I had used. They called it Magenta, and it is it's a 6 ounce skein, and I used roughly 4.5 ounces for it. I know that because that's how I started off. The first color I'd started with, that first shade of pink, was a 4.5 ounce ball of pink, and I only have this much left. So I used like 4.3 ounces instead of 4.5. So that's what I did with the rest of the blanket. I use this as my measurement for everything else. So it gives me roughly 17 rows of spider stitch, or 18 depending on the yarn. So this is all I have left of that first color. And this is all I have left of the Duckie yellow. Best color Lion brand ever made, this Duckie yellow. But this one, this is Arbor Rose from Michaels. They're Impeccable. Loops and Threads Impeccable. This is Arbor Rose. They still make this, which is so funny because I actually just picked up a ball of this at my local thrift store. So now I have some more. Oh, yeah, I was going to use Vanna's Choice, her magenta color. It's called Raspberry, but I didn't have enough. This is the only skein of this, and it's less than 3 ounces. It wouldn't have been enough to finish the blanket, so that's why I had taken this to JoAnn's with me to find a color that was similar. So this color wound up a little lighter, but it still did the job. So don't be afraid to go pick up other yarns from other companies, as long as it's similar and it'll do the job for you. You know, don't be afraid to mix and match. Pink Poodle. This is about how much I have of that. This was my second ball of Pink Poodle. I had 2, and this is what's left of the second one. Because, you know, some of my balls of yarn were 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces. Some of them were 4.5. Some of them were 6. So when it was 6, I had a lot of leftovers. So I took the yarn label off because I kept that little sample. So you see, I wanted to go right back into working with these colors and make another blanket, which, sitting here with them today, I'm going to sit with these. I'm going to do something. The darker shade of blue that I have in there, it's a teal color from Loops and Threads Impeccable. This was all I had left of that one. And I think they still make this color. I think I saw this on the shelf recently. Plus, I know that I actually have more in my yarn stash. So this is a wonderful color. I love this too. The Spring Green from Red Heart. This pale shade of blue, which is really pretty. I love that. Which you can tell because I put them all in a blanket and it came out fantastic. Here's the dark shade of purple. This is what I got left over. The lighter shade of orange. I think they just called it bright orange. What I'll do is I'll take my yarn labels, like when I go to my computer to put all this in the computer, in the description box, I'll have the yarn labels sitting with me, and I'll let you know the name of the company and the color if you guys want to look for them. So this color was a possibility. This is lemon yellow, I want to say, from Red Heart, I think. But I had already taken the label off and done a little sample. This was a possibility too, but it just didn't work for me. And then here's that big skein of orange. So when I have to trying to figure out the cost of how much in order to sell it, okay, I have to take that $7 and divide it, do some math, because I only used 4 ounces of it. And I didn't do that yet. I didn't do any math yet. And this shade of green, which is a really good shade, I thought about putting it in the blanket, but I didn't. This is Radiant Lime from Vanna's Choice. And what I did was I was working out the numbers on my blanket, so I had started it again to make sure that my numbers were right. So this is just a sample that I plan on ripping out because I don't need it like that. But I'm always double checking my numbers for my blankets. And a lot of times when I double check my numbers, I'll come up with a completely different set of numbers every time I do it. And then I get frustrated. And I'm like, why in the world, when I count this the second time, the third time, the fourth time, do I get 3 or 4 different numbers? I don't know. You know it happens to you. It happens to all of us, right? All right, guys, so hopefully I've got all the information I could possibly think of. It's actually been a while since I've done a project video. I'll have to go back and look at my other ones and see what kind of information I normally put in them, because I often forget. Once I'm done with a video, usually goes right out of my head. Like sometimes I'll get a comment down in the comment section about something that I said in the video. I'm like, I said that? I'm like, I don't remember saying that. It's just like anything else. When you're done, you're done. You know, it just goes completely out of your head. So if I did miss anything, just let me know down in the comments below, and I will try to answer it and let you know if it's something that I missed. But again, I loved making this blanket, and I loved spending time with you guys making this blanket. It was so much fun. So I think I'm going to end it there for today. You can find me on Instagram. It's Granny Square Peg. You can send me an email, grannysquarepeg@gmail.com. I keep saying my Etsy shop, right? It is Granny Square Peg at Etsy. Okay. I think I only have one blanket listed in there because as good as my intentions are on making blankets and selling them, I do kind of get attached to them, and I do have a little bit of a hoarding issue going on, and I don't want to let go of them, although I don't have any use for them, because we all have our blankets in the house, and everybody's got a crocheted blanket already, and you can only have so many, you know. So as much as I say I'm going to list it, I don't actually do it, because I like my blankets, but I'm still working on letting them all go. So if all goes well today, yes, I will have this one listed. All right. So I think that is it for today. And then we'll get back to doing our patchwork squares. Give me a couple days. I still got some maintenance on my computer I need to do, and then I'll show you guys how I make the granny square and how I make the corner to corner square. And it's only just to help me use up my variegated yarn stash. I'm not putting the patchwork square, the granny square, and the corner to corner in the same blanket. No, they're 3 separate blankets in the making right there. So, all right, I love you guys. You know that. You guys are awesome down in the comments. If you've made it this far and you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Jenny. Welcome to Granny Square Peg, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.